This is the pulp from my meal, and if you look at this, if I dried this out in the food dehydrator and put it into a dried packaged soup mix, you would not know that it's just pulp. And it's really good stuff to work with, so I'm going to be making some food out of it. And this is what we're having. So James has already had some of this soup. In the middle of the night I made some.
Yeah, it was very
good. And I made a big pot, so you'll be having some later on.
Looking forward.
Yeah.
A mixture of potatoes, broccoli, and broccoli juice, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
And
quite healthy.
Nutmeg and salt and garlic. That's it. And it's a great soup. I'm having carrot chai. I let my carrot juice boil, so now it's not a very attractive color. But if you just heat it up, like James's, it just stays the color of James's juice. He's just having carrot juice, and
my choice. I'm not.
Yeah, he didn't want the chai, but he's having broccoli crust pizza, and that's one of the uses for broccoli pulp.
So what all went into the pizza?
Oh, enough of that. Oh, lots.
They must have seen a cat, eh?
Who wants carrot? You want carrot? Yeah, that'll keep your mouth quiet for a little while.
For a while. They really go after those carrots.
Paris.
I'll hand it over to them. There you go, Paris. Can you see that there, girl?
And I'm really tired of the media trying to convince the public that it's okay to just let yourself die. You know, like we were on the way to the grocery store this morning, because I love to go grocery shopping this time of year. You can get so much produce for so cheap. So I bought a couple pumpkins for, I think they were $2.50 each or something like that. And I can make pumpkin latte out of that, and it's delicious. And I was getting carrots for $4 for a 10-pound bag, and beets and onions, lots of stuff. So really cheap to buy groceries this time of year. So it's good to have a couple coolers on hand. Put a couple water bottles filled with water bottles in the freezer, and then keep your produce in the cooler, so you can get a lot of produce this time of year. And it's easy to go through produce. Like James and I have enough beverage for another glass, but that was 5 pounds of carrots that I juiced. It's easy to go through. And then I'll work with the pulp and put it in the freezer, and we'll have it later on. So but yeah, on the way to the grocery store today, we were listening to CBC, and they played that awful Blood, Sweat, and Tears song. What's it called?
Well, there's several awful ones. The big one is Spinning Wheel, Up and Down.
No, I don't care.
But
What's
it was
the name of this song?
It was One Child of Mine Left to Carry On.
Yeah.
Carry on.
Yeah, whatever.
I'm not tired of dying, but I'm
I don't know what it is. Yeah, you really are. Anyway, the song basically says, you know, when I'm gone and when I die and
when I'm gone, there'll be one child
left to carry on. So what the hell, right? Like, I don't
know what they were thinking.
Yeah. So they're playing this.
It's an awful message.
And then I'm in the grocery store and I'm listening to my audiobook, but over the audiobook I can still hear the music. Forever young, I want to be forever young. Do you really want to live forever, forever and ever? So basically it's go ahead and die young, you know, like.
Who did that song? You remember?
I can't remember.
Because I can't remember that song.
Oh, it was a great song.
It sounds like something from the 80s or something.
Yeah. But anyway, so they're playing that in the grocery store, and they were playing that song the last time, like when the pandemic hit. I remember hearing that, and they were playing Love Shack and, and Rome, and I was like, wow, that message, roam and go ahead and die young, like,
Yeah.
and so the thing is neither James nor I have a child, so it is not right for people to go around deciding, oh well, it's okay, we'll
I've
go
got some
around and kill
kids.
people because there's, it'll make room for the children. Not my children. I don't have children. The Alberta healthcare saw fit to make sure that I wouldn't have children. So the government essentially sterilized me and then wanted me to pay huge amounts of money to try to get pregnant. So
$10,000 a shot.
nope. I'm not going to die to make room for your children. That's not right. That's murder. If you're running around trying to kill off other people to make room for your children, that's not right.
Yeah. I hardly agree. So there were some pretty nasty things. There was some guy from McGill University on, CBC guy, and he's sounding like a real kind person. He sounds as though he's from South Asian extraction.
Yeah, he sounded like he was from India, and I was wondering about that.
Yeah.
I was like, is he trying to, did it get him to speak to try to convince people who were South Asian to get vaccinated? Or did they get him to speak to piss off everyone else about the Modi COVID variant?
Yeah. So now the Delta variant, what we're going to be doing is calling all these things by the people who caused them. So apparently the Delta variant came from India. We're not going to call it the Indian variant. We're going to call it the Modi variant.
But we're
Modi's,
definitely not going to call it the Delta variant anymore.
No.
Because the Greeks had nothing to do with it.
No, they didn't. I don't think they've had their own variant. They might have. They're a very small nation. Much abused. Turkey's using them to reconquer Europe. But the first step, of course, is Greece. The Turks were very nasty to Greece. Turkey used to be part of the Greek Byzantine Empire. Official language, I guess, would have been Greek. Somehow or another, the Turks ended up with it. And as recently as roughly when my dad was born. My dad's still alive. They were ethnically cleansing Greeks from Turkey. Greeks have been in Turkey since approximately, and this is on a revised dating, 900 BC. On a not revised date, it would be something like 1400 BC. So the way it's portrayed, of course, is, oh, there was a trade of nationality. Like the Turks repatriated 1.5 million Greeks to Europe, and the Greeks, this is near after World War I, and the Greeks repatriated 1 million Turks. Okay, for one thing, how come the Turks ended up with 500,000 more Greeks repatriated than the other way around? But you see, there's no symmetry there, because the Turks don't belong in Europe.
Paris.
They don't belong in Europe. Where the Turks came from is from Asia. Fact is, if you look at it and do a little bit of reconstruction, you figure out they came from northeastern Siberia originally. Whereas the Greeks have been in Asia Minor, or what's called Turkey nowadays,
Well, I guess I'm eating that
since
one.
900 BC, and that's at least. It could be deeper than that. It could be, for example, that the Greeks came into Greece via Asia Minor. There's no symmetry there. It's not just an asymmetry in terms of numbers. There's no symmetry there. Now, if Turks want to move to Europe and practice democracy and not practice intolerance and stuff like that, there'd be a place for the occasional Turk. But the population of Turkey is growing at a thoroughly irresponsible rate.
Paris, it's okay.
And Turks have proven generally, I'm talking about generally, to be not terribly assimilable in Europe. Europe is, even before I was born, was severely overpopulated. It should not be required to take over refugees or whatever from any other nation. Europe, especially nations that are irresponsibly overpopulating the world, not just their own areas, but the world. So, let's get back to what we're talking about, Mahdi. This guy was saying, especially India, it showed us that we've got to help these guys out. India has a thoroughly irresponsible growth rate. The Hindus in India, of course, aren't nearly as irresponsible, I should say, as the Muslims are in India. What was it? 1.7% growth rate, annual growth rate amongst the Hindus in India. 2.74, I believe it was, 2.75. We'll say 2.7. We'll say 2.7 for Muslims in India. Absolutely irresponsible. Control your zippers, you guys there in India. Control your zippers. Irresponsible. So, this guy was saying, Canada has got this reputation as being the worst hoarder in the whole world. We don't have an irresponsible growth rate. What we've got is an irresponsible growth rate of people coming in and with the intent of, in many cases, of taking over.
I didn't bring any more carrots out, sorry.
So, countries like India, get your population under control, and then maybe I'd consider, giving some aid or something like that. Give you an example. India. They've got a space program. Canada doesn't. Not really. They've sent stuff out in outer space. We've provided a Canadarm for the American space program, and someone did a little bit of a study, and it might have been true, looking at how much aid Canada, a wee small country, now it's about 30 million. What is India? 1.4 billion? And we're aiding them in overpopulating the whole of the world. But here's the space program. They found out the aid that we've given to India over the years was roughly the same amount of money that India had spent on their space program. That's Canada's space program. That's Canada's space program. So yeah, we and the Americans have some vaccines that look as though they're getting to pass their best before date. That stuff should be sent elsewhere
Sure.
before it goes stale, becomes useless and stuff like that. What we should be sending from Canada.
But honestly, they should have to pay for it. We're
Right.
having to pay for it. We're
Yeah.
going into debt severely so
Yeah.
that we can pay for
Yeah.
medication, these vaccinations for people. Well, how are we going to pay that debt back? How are we going to pay it off? So, yeah, you can take on the debt
Yeah.
we took on to buy this stuff in the first place. I was listening to a guy a few weeks ago, and he was talking about how greedy Canada is for not giving up the vaccines to the various countries or whatever. And I'm like, we had to borrow money to get them. Why are we greedy for not? Why should we have to pay for it all? We're borrowing money from the World Bank, basically from China, who started this,
Who started
in the first
it off
place.
in the first
And
place.
So shouldn't they be paying for the vaccines for the whole
Absolutely.
world? Not
Absolutely.
us. Why are we borrowing money to pay for vaccines to send to the rest of the world?
Yep.
It doesn't make any sense.
Makes no
And we're
sense.
greedy because we're not doing it? What's that about?
Yeah. When I was a kid, if I'm not mistaken, the population of India was maybe 600 million. Now it's more than twice that. I'm an old geezer, but not that old. It's 2 generations. Like India would be a whole lot better off economically if they hadn't had that huge population growth. And for most of my life, it's been recognized that there was a population explosion. You don't hear about it that much anymore because
you guys want this bread,
it's not
Okay.
politically correct.
That's
But
all I have now. I don't have carrots anymore.
What we should be sharing from Canada is the idea of a bubble. It's worked in the part of Canada
That's actually done it.
that's less well off. This is what Canada should be spreading to the third
gonna
world
eat it?
and stuff like that. Is,
Well,
hey,
I don't know what to do.
here's the bubble thing. It's low tech. It doesn't cost a lot of money. Go for it. Go for it. It's sustainable. All this kind of stuff. Try it. You might like it. Instead of doing the Modi thing, Modi was going along. Same thing with Brazil. Bolsonaro was denying. They're basically COVID deniers and stuff like that. Why should we bail them out? Now, here's the deal. This guy was saying, we can't shut ourselves off because it's impossible. You're an epidemiologist, you flunky from McGill. I want you to resign right now.
You know that the bubbles work.
The bubbles work in Australia.
It's
like
a pretty big country.
Yeah.
So, I mean, one thing proving that the bubbles work with the maritime provinces, they don't have that many people. But Australia, come on. The bubbles work. So,
where
stop lying.
they've had breakouts is where they've allowed people to come back in and quarantine, and it would be people working in the quarantine places that would be catching and spreading it to the regular population. There should be no travel.
None. No butts across borders.
No butts across borders. No ifs, ands, and buts about it. So it's that simple. You can close it. So I was mentioning this to a person a while back. I was working in Australia and New Zealand. Oh, but they're islands. Oh, they thought they were being so smart because they knew a little bit about geography. Now, all I said is, what Canada should do, what every other country should do with a land border, is make themselves the equivalent of an island. No butts across borders. Doesn't matter if it's Detroit and Windsor. No butts across border. You have trucks going across, but the drivers change. Either slightly on one side or slightly on the other side.
Yeah, they should just unhitch the load
Yeah.
and new truck, cab,
Yeah.
hitching up the load, right?
Now, would
it'll
that
take
cost
a little
money?
more time.
It would
Yeah.
cost money. But I'm telling you, it wouldn't cost anything like what the COVID thing has cost so far. It would cost money, and there'd be a little bit of inconvenience. But man, oh man, the inconvenience now, the people having to mask, this, that, and the other thing, and the money's incredible. And we're talking about money, and we're talking about China. You're going to be hearing a lot about this. Reparations now from China. Every country across the world that's been affected by COVID, which is every one of them, including Australia and New Zealand, should be presenting their bills to
definitely.
China for the
the
economic
maritime
fallout.
provinces of Canada, they depend on
Tourism.
tourism.
Yep.
I mean, Prince Edward Island is literally marketed as Canada's playland or playground or something like that, right? So
They've had to pay.
that's all they
Pay through the
what
nose.
do they have? Potatoes and tourism. That's it.
That's about it.
So
Maybe some lobstering and so on.
yeah,
and so
okay, some lobsters.
But reparations. Now, that's just the beginning. So, all the stuff that's borrowed, forget it, China. That shouldn't go back to China, People's Republic of China. None of that. Then there's all the stuff that's been borrowed elsewhere.
Mm-hmm.
All that stuff's got to be repaid by China. Then, you see, that's just the economic fallout. There have been people who've died.
See, the thing is there's a lot of Americans and Canadians really don't think about it, but our ancestors, most of us that have a fairer complexion, were not wealthy people. They tended to be the natives from the European areas that were taken over by other people. So they tended to be poor. They didn't do as well in the new society, the conquering society. And then when they had the opportunity to go somewhere and make something better of themselves or whatever, then they went to the new world.
I'd never thought about it that
Yeah.
way, but there might be a lot.
And
not just
so,
something
if you
to,
think about it, there are people out there that are so dang racist. They have taken over the areas in Europe where the American Caucasian-looking people came from, and they don't really think much of them, and they don't want them to survive this. So we're a lot of us, we're expendable. They're trying to kill us off. They don't want to, they've taken over the native land of our ancestors, but they won't move out of there. They've overpopulated it, and then there's more immigrants coming in, but they certainly don't want the natives coming back and taking it over. So yeah, they'd just rather we just go ahead and die, and then they don't have to think about the fact that they're squatting on land that they never should have been on anyway. So, I mean, we've been hearing a lot about Native people here on the CBC, and they don't really talk about the fact that the people that came over here were Native people where we came from, where our ancestors came from, and we were marginalized, our ancestors, not
many
not
were.
me.
Many were.
So, I don't know. It's a funny world with a whole lot of racist people in it that really want some people to just die off. Just go ahead and die off so that they can
And it's
continue colonization.
various sorts of intolerance. Many of the people who populated the northeastern part of the United States, they were religious refugees. The Puritans,
true.
for example. So
Yep.
there was intolerance. It's something that I'm going to have to research and things like that. You look at the
Or the
Irish,
Mennonites.
Mennonites, exactly.
Yeah.
The Hutterites, same deal. course, Hutterites were they're about the worst.
So really,
About the worst.
America is the land of the refugees to a large extent. You know, it's the land of the marginalized people. And
But the thing that I'd say is it's overpopulated now. Every place in the world is overpopulated.
yeah, there's not
Every
enough food
place,
to go
so
around.
there's not enough land, food, or whatever to go around. And it's not up to people who've been responsible about their population growth to take over the overpopulation when people have been irresponsible with their population growth. That's absolutely wrong. So I do want to talk about one more step about reparations. We got a couple of minutes?
You have 4.
4
or
minutes.
maybe 3.
Okay. So we talked about the borrowing from China and then the borrowing from elsewhere.
I don't have
All
it
that
right
stuff should be
You didn't
paid
have-
off by
Oh,
the Chinese.
You did eat the bread.
By
Okay,
the
you can have
People's
that if you
Republic
want.
of China. And then there's the thing about
Well, I gave it to him,
wrongful
that's all I
death.
had.
What is a person's life worth? I think it's worth more than $1 million. I want to see the Chinese held responsible. $1 million for every person that's died in COVID. $1 million, except for the 30,000 or so that have died in the People's Republic of China.
well, what-
I want $5 quadrillion coming from the Chinese to the rest of the world, just for the people that have died.
And if you think about it, you could put a price tag on how much it costs to keep people in ICUs.
Mm-hmm.
So, definitely should get reparations for that, because our healthcare system, I mean, essentially, we don't have one now. Because it's like, either people are being taken care of in emergency situation, or they're not getting anything because we don't have enough nurses and doctors and infrastructure or anything to handle this. And
Sorry, I thought you
no,
were...
you go ahead.
Here's the principle for triage right now. We should be offering for the average person who gets their vaccine the same level of health care that they were getting before.
Exactly.
If there's a little bit extra left for people who need a ventilator or stuff like that, but don't deserve one, who haven't got their vaccines, haven't been doing masking, haven't been doing social distancing, then you start triaging them. And in other words, if they were just didn't get the vaccine but weren't out demonstrating and stuff like that, then maybe they're first in line. If you've been demonstrating, not doing social distancing, not doing masking, doing crazy rodeos and stuff like that, you're right at the bottom of the list. And this is after the healthcare system has been maintained for the average person who's gotten the vaccine.
Yeah.
This is the way triage should be handled. It's absolutely wrong. The people going around, I don't think it works. I'm gambling that COVID doesn't exist. And then, hey, save me, it does exist. No way. No way.
And well, if you're going on vacations and stuff, bottom of the list.
Again, wow. Well,
That's
you
irresponsible.
get down towards the bottom of the list. If you got vaccines, I don't know. Yeah.